Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Gosztola. I'm the managing editor for Shadowproof, and welcome to this broadcast. Very pleased to be with you. And I'm going to present to you this clip of former CIA Director Leon Panetta, who has called for President Donald Trump to be treated no differently than NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, which is, of course, something that's loaded. There's a lot to unpack there because what he is desiring is a prosecution under the Espionage Act. And I think that tells us all you need to know about why the Espionage Act should be abolished, done away with, or seriously reformed. It's why civil liberties, human rights organizations, and press freedom groups included have backed reforms, various reforms to it. And at minimum, you would want a public interest defense so that there would be some kind of distinguishing between Edward Snowden and President Donald Trump. Their actions are meaningfully different. But before I go into the clip, please take a moment to subscribe to thedissenter.org if you haven't. Also, subscribe to the Shadowproof YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, give our channel a boost, and then you'll also be alerted when I go live. I don't always plan. I don't always set the times. I just like to do these, leave the videos, they archive. People can watch them later if they're not around to catch them live. And then sometimes we have streams. There's a call-in show that I do, the Reframe, weekly. If that's your thing and you want to have some more meaningful interaction with me. But other than that, I'm just putting up content that can be shared along with the other articles that I do at the Dissenter. So, and I'll come back to that at the end here. But let's play this clip here of Leon Panetta on CNN. This happened on Sunday. This was on Sunday. It was in the afternoon, and it was in response to a Washington Post report that was based on at least a couple anonymous people who claim to know something about the Trump investigation. So there's more to be verified as far as the details, but it gave us this exchange between Leon Panetta and then Jim Acosta. So let's break this down.
That some of the classified documents included highly sensitive intelligence regarding Iran and China. And at least one document seized described Iran's missile program. With me now is former Secretary of Defense, former CIA Director, former White House Chief of Staff, Leon Panetta. Secretary Panetta, I can imagine you being back in the White House or at the CIA or at the Pentagon and something like this occurring and your hair literally catching fire. I mean, given your background in all of those areas, how damaging could this be to national security, and just how frustrated would you be if you were in this situation learning all of this?
First off, I just want to point out that Jim Acosta is supposed to play the role of a journalist, and we would want these kinds of disclosures. We need people to talk to us in order to have stories. And so this idea of like sympathizing with him, your hair would be on fire if you learn these details. But then also like this idea that we're supposed to get worked up as journalists about the mishandling of classified information because there are rules and we have to follow these security regulations. I mean, I don't have to. I don't have a security clearance, and there isn't anything that says legally that I have to be concerned at all about the same set of issues that a CIA officer or an NSA analyst must follow. And then, so I just think it says a lot about our media that Jim Acosta is, always has a lot of empathy for someone like Leon Panetta who comes on the show. All right, so put this back up here.
Well, it's extremely concerning to have that kind of classified information being treated the way it is. And I'll tell you why, Jim, because lives are at stake. It's that simple. This information doesn't fall from the sky. It takes spies who are well located in key positions. It takes very sensitive operations to be able to discover this kind of information. And if you're careless with the information, the danger is that it's going to jeopardize the lives of those who are seeking that kind of intelligence. So this is incredibly reckless to allow classified material like that to be treated the way the former president treated it.
Leon Panetta can say that if he wants. He can say that what Donald Trump did put lives at risk. But you all should also know that Leon Panetta was the CIA director when the Osama bin Laden raid was carried out, and Zero Dark 30 filmmakers formed a relationship with the CIA, which was encouraged by Leon Panetta. And then during a classified awards ceremony in June of 2011, he gave a speech that contained top secret information, and the inspector general for the CIA identified that he probably should have known that Mark Bull was in the audience. Mark Bull was a screenwriter who worked with director Catherine Bigelow on Zero Dark 30. This speech with top secret information, those details were leaked effectively to Mark Bull, the screenwriter, to make this love letter to the CIA about the role of the CIA in getting bin Laden, but also, to treat them with reverence for the role that they played in the global war on terrorism, and give this false narrative that torture had worked, that it allowed you to obtain intelligence that could then be used in order to catch bad and dangerous people like Osama bin Laden. So the fact of the matter is that this is something that should be known if Leon Panetta is going to come on TV and moralize about these security guidelines that must be followed. And I don't think he has any place in this discussion when it comes to saying what should be done to Donald Trump. He himself was referred to the Justice Department for prosecution, and the Justice Department decided that they would allow the administration to show discretion to Leon Panetta, which basically means we'll go, oh, you probably shouldn't have done that. This probably should have been handled better, but you've learned your lesson, and we wish you the best going forward. And so that is something that could be on the table for Donald Trump if it weren't for the fact that there are a fair number of elites who believe that there should be something done about Donald Trump's mishandling of classified information.
I mean, what is the solution to all of this, Secretary Panetta? I mean, at the end of the day, do you think Trump has to be prosecuted for this?
Well, there's no question that he's violated security laws and the Espionage Act, and he should be held accountable. People are held accountable. Snowden, who revealed classified information, is hiding in Russia because if he came to the United States, he would be held accountable for revealing classified information. So the only way to basically secure classified information is to enforce the laws that are in place that require that you handle classified documents in a specific process and procedure. I mean, if you're in the White House, when I was in the White House, other presidents that I worked with, there were strict procedures about handling classified information. You had to basically log those classified documents in, and you had to make sure that even if the president had access to those documents, that they were returned. None of that seems to have taken place in the Trump administration. And for that reason, security laws have without question been violated.
All right, so let's parse some of that. And Leon Panetta thinks that there isn't any difference between what Snowden and Donald Trump did. At least that's what he's saying. Or he's saying that if Snowden was going to face prosecution, then Donald Trump should face prosecution as well. At least that's what I'm hearing. And, the thing of it is that Edward Snowden is not hiding in Russia because he doesn't want to face the consequences, because he doesn't want to go on trial. He's hiding in Russia, if we're going to use Leon Panetta's words, because he could not get a fair trial in the United States, in Alexandria, Virginia, in the Eastern District, and he would not be able to put on a public interest defense. And this goes back to what I was talking about in the opening of this video, that there is no distinction. So if you are prosecuted, let's take Edward Snowden and Trump as the examples, and Edward Snowden walks in the courtroom and he wants to say, well, I did this because I was exposing unconstitutional and illegal acts by the National Security Agency. The judge says, no, 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 you're not allowed to say that, because the prosecutors have determined that that's not relevant to the Espionage Act, the law, the way that we've handled these cases. It doesn't matter why you did it or what your intentions were. You disclose the information. Uh, Donald Trump comes into the courtroom. Donald Trump wants to make an argument. His lawyers get up. He wants to say to the judge, I released, I had this information in my possession. This information was stuff that I was going to use later to show a judge, or show the whole world that I was under attack from the FBI. And there were people who were in the quote unquote deep state who were out to get me. The judge says, no, no, you can't make that argument. You can't do that. But also, I would submit to you that what Donald Trump did is incredibly different, because of the fact that we didn't see the information. Edward Snowden revealed it. There was transparency. There was something that was given to all of us with a great sacrifice. Edward Snowden left his career and fled to Hong Kong, and then ended up stuck in Moscow because the State Department revoked his passport. And then he stayed in Russia because he doesn't want to come home. Joe Biden was involved in this as vice president when he was in President Barack Obama's White House. And he stayed in Russia because there hasn't been any push here in the US among political leaders, among the establishment, to bring him back home and not have him live in exile in Russia, where, they constantly accuse him of being a pawn of President Vladimir Putin, yet there is no meaningful effort on anyone's part to go and get him, bring him back here, say, we won't let you be used as a pawn by Putin anymore. But these people just don't care. They do not care. They don't give a shit about Edward Snowden and giving him the independence and the autonomy, and not being squeezed in between two powers. They probably aren't even on his side. And we know that Leon Panetta despises Edward Snowden. And so, and in this example, he also despises Donald Trump, and he doesn't see them as being different. And I think that's part of the problem. That's part of the issue here that I'm outlining. Now, there's something else that I want to talk about. I wanted to go to an article that was written by William Neuheisel for Responsible Statecraft. I'm going to put this up on the screen for you. And, there's not a lot of visual, so it doesn't lend itself to this video, but this is one last set of points that I want to make about Leon Panetta and what he was saying. So I'll go ahead and put this tab up on the screen here so you can see the article that I'm referring to. I'd encourage you to go read this and find this article that was published about the CIA's hypocrisy on sources and methods, that the agency's carelessness in protecting its own agents reveals the cynicism of the U.S. government's treatment of whistleblowers. That's how Responsible Statecraft describes the article. But William works for Exposed Facts. He's a civil liberties and human rights advocate. And what he describes here is the fact that Leon Panetta was CIA director for a time. I mean, he doesn't deal with Leon Panetta. I'm contextualizing it, but what is being described here in this article was happening for some of CIA Director Leon Panetta's tenure. And then he left and he became a defense secretary. Of course, he would have still been concerned about what was happening because there were networks of informants in China and Iran who were being rounded up and they were executed, jailed, or they were changed and flipped into double agents, probably because they were threatened by the authorities. In Iran and China, he writes, almost the entirety of the CIA's network in two of its top priority countries were reported to have been exposed. And then he goes on to describe the nature of what this lax security was. And you don't hear anything about this from Leon Panetta. He doesn't talk about this. He talks about leaks as being like the top risk to sources being exposed. And again, there are two unnamed officials who spoke to Washington Post, and we still need some further corroboration of what they're saying. Because if you recall, we heard earlier that there were these documents about nuclear weapons that were in the files that Donald Trump took. And what that turned out to really be about, in my view, was that he had corresponded with Kim Jong-un about North Korea's nuclear weapons program. And I had a back and forth about denuclearization or something to that effect. And that became, oh, he stole the details and programmatics of nuclear weapons or something of that order. And I don't think that that's been proven to be true. So the Washington Post was the one that put that out there. And now we have this story about Iran missiles and then something from China. We need more corroboration before we can take this as fact and treat it so seriously like Leon Panetta did on CNN and like Jim Acosta did with Leon Panetta. But that being said, here is the article that is laid out here by William. Essentially says that the CIA had a system that resulted in lapses in basic tradecraft. This goes back to 2010, early 2010s. And this essentially it meant that the secret communication system the CIA was using with its sources was compromised, and essentially the CIA system had a messaging function that was hidden in a search box of hundreds of cheaply produced fake websites. The word hidden should be loosely used here. A Reuters report found that more than 300 of the sites and showed that a cursory look at their publicly available HTML source code revealed labels such as message, compose, and password. Because the agency purchased the domain names in bulk, the websites were assigned sequential IP addresses, making it almost trivially easy to identify the whole network once a few were discovered. In other words, if that's very complicated, and to me, actually, I'm having difficulty following it. So I'm glad that William spells it out. Simply entering the correct operators into a Google search might have led to dozens of informants rounded up and executed. This level of sloppiness is deeply shocking and inexcusable for a spy service with the resources and expertise available to the CIA. But there are additional layers of hypocrisy and bitter irony that have been less discussed. And as William points out, the episode was unfolding at the same time that the Justice Department was ramping up the war on whistleblowers and claiming that sources and methods, put those in quotes, sources and methods was why they had to mount these unprecedented Espionage Act prosecutions under Obama. They claim that they needed to assign the gravest weight to the protection of sources, according to William. But those sources were treated as utterly disposable. The agency couldn't even be bothered to obscure the HTML on its communications system. So the more technically minded people will understand everything that I just said. The less technically minded will just know that I told you that the CIA hyperventilates about security while it has systems that are not adequately protecting their own informants or human sources. And then when somebody exposes details that have to do with US crimes, then they use this, they throw up this smoke screen. They instill panic in all of the population that something terrible is going to happen to their informants or human sources in order to distract from the contents of a whistleblower's disclosures, all the while not addressing the fact that their own security systems can be compromised easily and can present problems for their own operations that are far worse than anything a whistleblower or a leaker, depending on their motivations, might be revealing. So maybe something is at risk because of Donald Trump's mishandling of classified information, but I doubt that it's as severe as what has been documented in these articles that William wrote about. But you won't hear that from Leon Panetta. You won't hear that context. You won't hear him talking about how the the focus on what could happen now is a bit overwrought, much like the reaction to WikiLeaks. I mean, again, we don't probably know every single document that Donald Trump took, and it's suspected that he may still be hiding some documents from Justice Department prosecutors. But that being said, I'm not going to join in this national security state religion and act like the sky is falling because these documents happen to be in the possession of Donald Trump. And I think that's because everyone in these services can protect themselves if they were to choose. And then, as we know from these stories that I just alluded to, this moment in history, they just didn't. They just had these systems that exposed people to being killed or jailed by regimes that they would say are authoritarian and repressive. So they should have been doing a lot better, and they just didn't. And that's because the lives of these people aren't as valued as they claim when whistleblowers come forward. They put US lives first, and anybody in a country that is not the United States is second to the lives of anybody who works for the agency or is in the US military. It is that way, and it will always be that way so long as the US empire is one that exists and has global dominance. So, with that, thank you, everyone. Again, this is the dissenter.org. If you go there, you can subscribe to the newsletter. I'm going to do another in a series of articles I've been doing on Chelsea Manning's book, the new book, readme.txt, her memoir. And that's going to be just for people who subscribe. I've had a few who joined and became subscribers over the last week. And I do exclusive articles for people as I can, so that I can show that I value their contributions, and I really do thank everyone who believes in the small work that I do, and we do the best that we can with the platform of the dissenter and with Shadowproof in order to cover these whistleblower stories and challenge things like Espionage Act prosecutions, and so I'll give that to people who are the subscribers. I've got one more in the series that I want to do about Chelsea Manning's court martial, drawing from my own experiences and what I observed while I was there. As I've read the book, especially that part of the book, and when she tells the story of her trial, I'm there too. I was there. I saw all of that, and I'm going to put that together and share it with people who are paid subscribers. So, thank you very much for tuning into this show, and I will see you all back here at this channel the next time I have a video. And